Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support at sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. Also, check our Facebook page, facebook.com/the Mike Wagner Show. Download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor FM. Also, watch the interview on YouTube and subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show channel and take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. We're here with a wonderful author and publisher from New York. He's a New York born and raised author and publisher of RockHill Publishing. He's an independent author and publisher. He's got 4 books in print with 2 more due out in the year, working on the Killer Series, which is a 4-book crime novel. And 1 and 2 have reached 5-star reviews. We'll talk about that. Also in progress, the Gemstone series, and also the Emerald Lady, the Ruby Cradle, and I guess there's just a lot more to talk about. Here he is, the writing machine of great New York City, ladies and gentlemen, the fine owner and publisher of RockHill Publishing, James Hill. James, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thank you, Mike. How are you?
Good. Hey, I'm doing great, doing great. So you've been born and raised in the Bronx. You're a native New Yorker, and you're the author and publisher of RockHill Publishing, and you have quite a number of books out, which is the Killer Series, a 4-book crime novel, which 1 and 2 have received 5-star reviews. You're also working on the Gemstone series, the Emerald Lady, Ruby Cradle, and also in particular, you wrote Killer with a Heart, Killer with 3 Heads, and Pegasus Journey to Eden. Now, before we get to some of the books, tell us how you got started.
Well, I started writing at a very young age. I used to buy comics, the Marvel series, and we would read the comics, and then we would trace out the characters and try to write the next story in the comic line. We always we try to beat Stan Lee at his own game.
I remember the days of tracing characters and everything else. That was a lot of fun, and you just triggered a really good memory right there.
Oh, yeah. So that's what really got me started into writing. And my father used to tell me that I talk so much, I even talk to myself, which I did because I always had these characters going around in my head. And I'd be having conversations, and they'd be having conversation with each other, other characters in my head. So I always had this vivid imagination and sort of like living out these fantasies. And sooner or later, they just became stories that I had to write down.
That is amazing. And at least they're having a staff meeting, which they do get results, which is good. So when you talk to yourself in characters.
Yeah, the worst part is when they argue.
There you go. Yeah. and of course, you spent 12 years of Catholic education, a couple more in college years as well, too, gave you a unique moral compass. And maybe just tell us about some of those adventures that were influencing your books as well, too.
Oh, yes. Well, what I did was in high school, and this is going back to the Killer series, because a lot of it takes place as teenagers growing up in the Bronx. So some of the high school stuff that went on and some of the things that we learned is actually reflected in the Killer series. I went to 12 years of Catholic school, and part of my time in Catholic school, I was a heretic. Some of the priests. Some of the priests and brothers felt I was a heretic. But what happened was, we would go to religion class every day, of course, and no one ever does their religion homework, let's face it. We had to carry our Bible, though, back and forth to school, and the only thing they would check on when you're going out the door of high school, I went to Cardinal Hayes, shout out to Cardinal Hayes in the Bronx, and they would open up your bag and look in there to see if you were carrying your Bible. Now, the Bible was like this thick, one of the big brown, full Old Testament, New Testament, the whole deal. So I found at that time the Lord of the Rings, which was almost the same size, and had the same brown cover to it. And that's how I wound up reading The Lord of the Rings, because I would carry that book back and forth instead of the Bible, and I'd be reading The Lord of the Rings instead of doing my religion homework.
So you kind of snuck that in there as well too, and I'm sure Gandalf was like, you shall not pass.
Yep. And of course, Led Zeppelin Ramble On, when Led Zeppelin Ramble On came out and they were singing, and, I'm like, hey, that's about The Lord of the Rings. You know what? I need to read this book. That's not carrying it back and forth.
Oh my goodness, that is something. And of course, you also got involved too with some computers as well too, besides your short stories. And you work in the financial industry and computer programming. And you can just tell us a little bit about that as well too.
Yeah. Back in high school, my mom worked for a bank. She was in check processing, and this is around 74, 73, something like that. And my school came up. We were one of the first schools to actually be teaching computer sciences, programming stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was working on this sort program. Back in the day when we had checks, I mean, we still have them. But what you would do is, what the banks would do, they would sort them out according to where they were going. Mm-hmm. So all the local banks would go into one batch. And then as you get further and further out, you put them in further and further batches, because they had to be sent to the FRBs. So I worked out a sort pattern for her that made it very fast to get all of the local checks in first, because they had to be sent out by like 9 o'clock or something. And then the later checks, like the West Coast checks, they didn't have to be sent out to 12. So I worked out the sort pattern for her. And funny thing is, I wound up working in her department in check processing when I graduated high school.
Oh my goodness!
Because I knew the sort pattern.
And I think in those days too, like in computer science, you had those sorting machines, like those punch cards. I think I remember those. That's kind of like a flashback in a sense.
Oh yeah, one of the fun things to do was, and you learned this early on, is to number your punch cards. And I even worked on paper tape in my high school. Everything was on paper tape, so we would have these long ticker tapes of programming. So you type it out on like a teletype type machine, and you run it through and it make the paper tape. But in college, we had the punch cards. And of course, you learn very early on to have it print the number of the cards on, because you get these big trays of cards and everything. And then someone bumps into you and the tray go flying and the cards are all over the place.
Oh no.
And then your program never going to work.
Oh my goodness. I guess there was some details right there. I can imagine if they tried those punch cards today, and be a lot of punching as well too. So
Oh yeah. Now when I worked in the bank, one of the people who was running the machine, excuse me, and this is one of the reasons why I had to go back to college and actually get a degree in programming, because I figured I can work my way into the programming department and this and that, just because I knew programming. I was I would say probably one of the first persons to write a virus back in high school. Well, the first thing you learn is all the bad things you can do with a computer. Then you practice on all the good things you can do. But this guy, he was working in the bank and he dropped a tray of checks.
Oh my.
And now these checks are all sorted by where they should be going, what banks they should be going, what FRBs were sending them to, the Federal Reserve boards. The Federal Reserve banks is the one who cleared the check. So in the banking industry, you get paid by how much money, the banks get paid interest on how much money they deposit with the Federal Reserve Bank. It's all about interest with the banks. Everybody does interest. So this guy one day, he dropped the tray of checks, and I'm talking thousands of checks.
Oh my.
And he just swept them up and stuck them back in the box. And we're sending these checks out. We're the ones who have to proof them and send them out. And we realized right away, oh, these checks are badly messed up. But, they was on our back to get the checks out, get them out. And our job was, you only had to check the first check and the last check in the batch to make sure it matched. So we did that. We checked the dollar amounts and wrapped them up and sent them. And that day, the whole thing rejected.
Oh my goodness!
Rejected them all. Because when it run through their sort of machine, yeah, the checks are not going where they're supposed to go and all this kind of stuff. You know, they got routing numbers on them, of course, and they should be routed to New Jersey or Connecticut or this. Well, some of them are going to Pennsylvania, some of them are going to California, some of them go to Ohio. So naturally, you know, millions of dollars worth of a deposit got rejected, and they don't
Oh,
send the check
no.
back. They go ahead and process them for you and charge you. So not only do you not get the interest, but now you're getting a charge from the Federal Reserve Bank because they have to resort the checks.
Oh, man.
So
And
me, yeah.
okay, you're saying?
So I was gonna say, needless to say, the next morning when I walked in because this is all done at night. So the next evening when I walked in, all the big managers and stuff for the bank is in there, and they are ripping my boss royally for this
Oh, no.
mishap. A couple of them. There was a
Uh-huh.
couple of mishaps in the banking industry and in finances, but that was my impetus to get out of finances so much and get into programming, which is what I really liked. So I wound up going back to college, getting a degree, and then I've been writing programs for the Navy, the government, private industry, health care. So I've been back and forth all over the map, California to Virginia. I live in Virginia now, so live in
Okay.
Virginia Beach. It's a big
That,
Navy town, big military town, so there's lots of government work here.
that is amazing, too. And, of course, your background in computer word processing gets into your current profession as an author. We'll talk about your books in a minute. You listen to the Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking your budget. Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. Also, check our Facebook page, facebook.com/the Mike Wagner Show. Also, download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor FM. Also, watch the interview on YouTube on the Mike Wagner Show channel. Make sure you subscribe. Also, download the Mike Wagner Show anywhere you go on any mobile device. We're here with New York born and raised author and publisher of RockHill Publishing, James Hill, now currently in Virginia Beach, Virginia, talking about some of his background as well, too, which led him right now to writing some really good books and starting off with the Killer series and Killer with a Heart. You can just tell us all about it.
All right, The Killer with a Heart takes us back to New York in the 70s, and it's about the mob and gangs. Coming up in the 70s, I knew a few people here and there in various professions in life. And I got out of gangs really early in my life. It was like a very unwise thing to do, to be a member of a gang. But when I was coming up in the South Bronx, you had to be a member of a gang in order just to cross the street to go to the store. That's how prevalent gangs were at that time. And you couldn't pretty much leave your block if you didn't have friends with you. But
right.
Then when I moved out of that area and we moved further uptown, I wound up in somewhat of a mob-controlled neighborhood, mixed neighborhood, Italian, Irish, German. We were one of the first black families to move into the neighborhood. Funny thing is, my mom grew up in that neighborhood.
Interesting.
Yeah. So where her house was, the highway now ran. When she was a little girl, she lived at the bottom of, I think it was St. Lawrence Avenue, she said. But now the bottom of St. Lawrence Avenue is a highway. So where she grew up in the neighborhood back as a kid. So we moved back to that neighborhood. And very interesting place. Like I said, knew some people here and there, various affiliations. And so the Killer with the Heart series is about, the Killer with the Heart book is like the beginning of the series. It's how these two teenagers get together and they decide to rob a money drop, a numbers drop. And so the guy, Nicky Nails, he's the son of a mobster, and he's just waiting to become the get into the family. Now, you don't really get to join the mob until you're over 18, because they don't want somebody in there who can turn on them. And if you was under 18, you really wouldn't face any kind of legal problems for what you did. And it was a little bit different for the gangs, because the gangs would take you in as a young kid for just that reason. So the gangs will have you carrying the guns and the weapons and stuff, because if you get arrested, you're only going to go to youth house. They can't, at that time, they couldn't charge you with anything serious. Mob wanted you over 18, because in case you turned on a mob, they would turn you into the police and you would go to jail for quite a long time. The idea of the blood in deal with the mob was, everybody used to think, oh yeah, you had to drink blood and stuff like that. But no, to be made a made man, to get into the mob, they usually wanted you to kill somebody. That was the blood in for the mob. So you kill somebody, and then they have that information and that stuff over your head. One of my favorite scenes from The Godfather is the beginning of The Godfather, when they drive the guy out there to Long Island. And this is somewhat of how the mob worked. It would be easier to get somebody you know to kill you than to get somebody you didn't know to kill you. So when it came time, they wanted to make the guy who was going to become a made man, get his bones. And so he drives out, and I forget the name of the character, but the big fat guy, he gets out the car, says he's going to go take a leak, and he leaves the other guy sitting in the back of the seat with the driver. Of course, the driver's the one they kill. So he shoots the guy in the back of the head. He gets out the car, and the guy tells him, hey, leave the gun, take the cannolis.
You're making me hungry for cannolis, I'll tell you that.
Now, I had a friend when I worked in the bank. He was one of my bosses, and we used to call him the Godfather, because he was well hooked up. And we used to drive around in Paul Castellano's car. He had Big Paulie's car, because when Big Paulie got shot, the car went to him. So one day, Pat, he tells me, I used to ride home with him, because I worked, like I said, I worked in the same job my mom worked in. And this was one of the people who was working in the job. Because the mob also told you, you had to keep up appearances so you would get a regular job and stuff. Give me just 1 second. It's raining like cats and dogs here, and I hear it bouncing off my window. I don't know if you can hear it.
I was going to say, do you have your windows open?
Yeah, I got to close them. Give me 1 second.
Okay, sounds good. While you're doing that, we'd like to take time out and say, listen to the Mike Wagner Show, the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Looking for a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs at below the competition way. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on MikeWagnerShow.com. Also, check our Facebook page, facebook.com/the Mike Wagner Show. Also, download and listen on Facebook, Sound, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and Anchor. Also, you can also check out the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe and take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. We're here with James Hill, the author and publisher of RockHill Publishing. We were talking about his first book, Killer with a Heart. And I think there was a little more we talked about before the rain started coming down. And I think we're trying to figure where we left off, something to do about The Godfather.
Yeah. So, this is Virginia. So all of a sudden it starts to rain on you, and I had to close the window. But anyway, what I was saying was my cannoli story is I'm riding home with Pat one night, and Pat tells me, hey, and it's like 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and Pat told me, hey, you want to go for some cannolis? Want to swing through Little Italy, we'll pick up some cannolis. And I told him, hey, Pat, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. There's no place going to be open. In fact, the places are always open for The Godfather. You with The Godfather. Don't worry about it.
Knock, knock, knock.
Yeah, so we pull up to the back of some place in an alley, back of this place, and he just toots the horn 1 second, and this little old Italian guy comes shuffling out to the car, and Pat tells him, bring me my bag and bring him a bag of cannolis. And now I'm sitting there with my face, with my hard look on. I have my sunglasses on because at that time I always wore sunglasses, even at night. And I'm sitting there with my sunglasses on, trying to look real hard and everything. And the guy looks over across the car at me, and he tells Pat, "Who's he?" Pat reaches out, grabs the guy by the throat, bam, bangs his head against the car.
Oh.
And goes, "Never mind who's he. You go get my bag and bring him a bag of cannolis."
Oh my goodness.
So the guy shuffles back off as fast as he can. He goes in. He comes out about 2 minutes later. He got these 2 white bags, you know. And Pat, he just sits there, he rolls up the window. So the guy shuffles around the car, comes to the other side of the caddy, and I sit there. I just roll the window down, you know, down comes the window. And I'm just sitting there like, I'm not reaching out to take anything. So the guy reaches over, he puts the 2 bags in my lap. I just roll up the window. I don't say anything. I roll up the window. We start driving off. So I'm looking around, you know, not to kind of, I'm trying not to be conspicuous, just kind of look in the mirrors, you know, are we being followed or anything like that? And we get on the FDR, the highway, you know, the FDR. We'll start heading uptown. So I say, all right, no one's behind us. So I say to Pat, all right, Pat, what's in the bags? And Pat goes, a cannoli, pass me one. And, you know, I feel the heat through the bag. So I'm like, all right, pass me a cannoli. I take cannoli. All right, Pat, what's in the other bag? Don't worry about that. I said, I'm not really worried. I just want to know if I all of a sudden see flashing lights and everything, do I take the bag and jump in the East River? Because I'm really not a swimmer.
Oh, no.
And Pat go, hey, you're riding with the Godfather. Don't worry about it. We got great lawyers. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I guess so. And so we get uptown and everything. And then my mom is like mad because she's like, where have y'all been? You know, it's late. And I'm like, we stopped for the cannolis. And she goes, you stopped for Pat, you took him on a run? I was like,
oh my gosh.
Like, Ma, take it easy. I've been in worse places than that. This was pretty tame. So that's my cannoli story. So the story of Killer with a Heart is how these 2 boys, one of them is a mobster, son of a mobster. The other one is a gang lord. And this is how they get together and how they begin their life of crime, so to speak. And the reason why I wrote this story is because I wanted people to understand that people like that aren't just made. They just all of a sudden become, you know, the Don. They usually start off very early in life, very criminally minded in life, and then they grow from there. And this is where the story starts, with Killer with a Heart. So that's the reason behind Killer with a Heart.
That was amazing too. This also led to Killer with 3 Heads and many more. I'll talk more about that. Listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Looking for a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@SonicWebStudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. Also, check our Facebook page, Facebook.com/the Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor FM, and watch the interview on the Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Just subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show. Also, take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. We're here with New York born and raised James Hill, the author and publisher of RockHill Publishing, now in Virginia Beach, Virginia. We just got done talking about Killer with a Heart, which begins at daybreak early 1971, which is part of a series as well, too, talking about the mafia and with kids, starting their careers. Now we're into Killer with 3 Heads, where Bulletproof Morris, as best known as, returns to New York as John Morrison, 10 years of absence. And you can just tell us all about it from there.
Okay. So in Killer with 3 Heads, Killer with 3 Heads is the book I initially wanted to write. This is the story, the central story of the series. And after Killer with a Heart, Morris goes off and he's he's an enforcer for the mob. He's working for the government in the war on drugs in South America, and he's also doing what he loves to do, which is building weapons. So he becomes this weapons dealer. So he's becoming an international criminal. So in the few years between the end of Killer with a Heart and the beginning of this book, he disappears, and no one knows what happened to him. And he comes back. It's like 10 years later. He comes back because they kidnapped his daughter. He had the daughter and Killer with a Heart, and then Killer with Three Heads. The daughter is now older, like around 10, 12 years old, and someone had kidnapped her. And so all of a sudden, Morris shows up in New York to get up with his old friend Nicky and find out how come who kidnapped his daughter. And he believes it was the mob, and Nicky is telling him, no, it's not the New York mob. They wouldn't do that because I would kill anybody who did it. Nicky is the little girl's godfather, of course. And in Morris's absence, he's been looking after her and looking after her mom and everything. Mm-hmm. So the story kind of like revolves around that kidnapping and what Morris will do to the people when he finds out. Now, the thing is, you don't know whether it was the mafia who kidnapped her, whether it was the government because of his involvement with the war on drugs, or if it was some other government because of his involvement with weapons dealing. And so it goes sort of like through who done it, tracking down these different people. And the thing about the Killer series is they believe in revenge. And it's all about loyalty and revenge. And so they're loyal to each other, and they will do anything for each other, for the family, for the gang. And of course, they will do anything to somebody who went against them. And so we get into this idea of now he's going to find these people, and no matter what it takes, he will have his revenge for them kidnapping his daughter.
And of course, he has to deal with the drug lords as well, too, and just gets into another area as well, too. It's like, with the drug lords, in your opinion, more powerful than mafia, equal or less powerful, the drug lords?
They are kind of like on the same par as the mafia, because you have the Colombians, and at that time, it was a big push with the Colombian cocaine and everything and the war on drugs. And part of the story tells you a little bit about the war on drugs, how it wasn't so much to stop the flow of drugs as it was to destabilize South American countries, namely Venezuela, because Venezuela has one of the biggest oil supplies in the world, bigger than the Middle East. And at this time, in the late 70s, early 80s, America is losing their hold on the Middle East. And they know that sooner or later, with the radical Islam and the different things going on in the Middle East, they're going to wind up losing their hold on that oil. And so they turn their attention to Venezuela. And using the idea of this war on drugs, they intend to destabilize the governments in Venezuela, Colombia, and use that as an excuse to get into these areas and take over the oil industry.
It sounds like that's what's happening right now as well, too, that saying there's a drug war going on. In reality, it's kind of set up so the U.S. can take over the oil industry. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, because if you notice, we never really stopped drugs from flowing. It is not because we can't, but there's just no real impetus in doing it. What we're more interested in is what other resources these countries have. And of course, setting up puppet governments and things like that. The same thing we've been doing in the Middle East. We profit up a bunch of dictators and stuff like that. And they're all great until they turn against us, bite the hand that feeds you. And the next thing you know, we're dropping bombs on these people. So it's, and the same thing goes on in South America and almost everywhere in the world. The governments aren't really interested in stopping crime and making people's lives better. They're more interested in what they can get out of that government, out of that area.
And do you suppose anytime soon the other countries will be coming for the United States to to take over our oil, especially up in the Bakken as well too, around the North Dakota region. That's where some of the oil is, and especially up in Canada, around Edmonton and Alberta as well.
Yeah, and we have to watch our interests, and of course, Alaska, like you said, northern Canada, the gas lines, all these things. This is where governments are interested in. Sure, the drug business is a multi-billion-dollar business, but think how much money there is in oil, how many billions and billions of dollars there are in oil. And so much so that the governments have risen and fallen over that type of thing. Going all the way back to the Crimea, with the Russians and everything. They've been trying to take the Crimea. And why? Because the Crimea is also loaded with gas and oil.
Yeah. That is amazing too. And what countries have it as well too, and just makes you wonder. It's like, what else can they offer as well? It's like, why can't they offer something else? I guess that's a big question nowadays, almost like what's playing nowadays in world politics right now.
Yeah. And the thing with oil is, at one point, we weren't even going to be an oil-based economy. We were going to be a solar-based economy because they had solar power, and they were working on that back in the early 1900s, and they showed how profitable and how easy it was to use solar energy to generate steam, to power steam and produce electricity. And just as that thing was getting started, they struck oil in the desert. And solar power went, away because, hey, it's just much easier to pump this stuff out the ground and use it than it is to build these gigantic steam producing factories and all that kind of stuff. And of course, not every place in the world can use solar power steam. You have to be in places where it's pretty hot. You can't move this stuff around. So you have to generate the steam power and stuff like that in places where you got a lot of sun. I mean, the United States can do it. We got the West where we get plenty of sun and plenty of desert area out there. Middle East have plenty of desert area. There are places in the world that could do it and clean energy. But it's like once they discovered oil, and this is petroleum oil, because remember, before that, the world was running off of like whale oil and things like that, which is not good for running cars and stuff. It's very low grade burning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course, I was going to get to the part with the stormy seas, and also one of your books featuring pine lumber for Virginia bound for England called The Emerald Lady, and of course, that's like a fantasy pirate mermaid love story in the golden age of the pirates on the 17th and 18th centuries, commercial vessels, safe and financial ruin, and the Mermaid Queen. And you can just tell us a little bit about that, going from the mafia over to pirates and mermaids.
Yeah. The Emerald Lady I wrote because of the NaNoWriMo mode. I don't know if you know exactly what that is, but that's the National Novel Writing Month, where you write a novel of 50,000 words or more within a month. And I have never written anything in a month. It always takes me a lot longer because I write, I edit, I go back and forth, write more. But this is like you have to do it in 1 month time, and you get to 50,000 words. So it was like, all right, I wanted to do it. I kept saying, oh, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And a couple of times it passed me by, and I was like, oh, crap. It's already passed, it's already mid-November. So when I finally got on it and I got it in time, I decided I'm going to write something that I haven't written before. Now, I wrote crime stories before. I wrote science fiction stories before. So I said, let me reach and work on something that I have never done before. And so I decided I was going to write a fantasy. And I love pirate stories. I love pirates. I love the sea. I have my own sailboat, my own pirate ship.
Oh, it's amazing too. I think we talked about the Emerald Lady and also Ruby Cradle. It's coming out this summer as well too. Maybe just give us a little preview on what to expect from the Ruby Cradle.
Yeah. Okay. The Ruby Cradle is the second part of the Gemstone series. So the Emerald Lady took place in the 17th, 18th century, where they found the mermaids, and because of what they did, they started a mermaid war between men, mermaid, and dragons. Of course, they have to have a few dragons thrown in for good luck. And then you get to the Ruby Cradle, which goes back to the age of castles. So the Emerald Lady is in the age of piracy, the golden age of piracy. Now they go back because mermaids live 1,000 years, and in order to defeat the dragons, which they wound up releasing in the Emerald Lady to help them out, they released the last dragon, and they saw where all the other dragons were, where their ruby cradles were, because they were all locked up in these. They went back into like a chrysalis state, and so now the daughter of Jeremy and Shira, it had to figure out how to kill the dragons, because the dragons are, of course, the real bad guys in the story. So the Ruby Cradle, she goes back to the grandma, the queen who got dethroned. She goes to her because she's now the oldest and the one who knows the most about dragons and how to defeat them and how they managed to lock these dragons into their ruby cradles to begin with. She goes to them, and mermaids have telepathy and mental powers. So in order for her to learn what she needs to learn, the grandmother takes her back in time through her mind meld, as you would, and takes her back in time to the age of castles when they was actually fighting the dragons. And so we go back in time to like the 1000s and the 1100s. And that's kind of like where it goes. It's sort of like a fantasy historical story, these Gemstone series. So they run them in with history. So there is a bit of history in there because I loved history in school. And so I mix in history and actual events and what happened, but I give my own twist on why these historical events took place and what were the driving forces behind some of this stuff. Like, what was the driving force behind the American Revolution? And it turns out to be the mermaids, the queen of the mermaids, were trying to drive men off the seas and the big ships from the seas. And then what was the driving force behind the building of the empires? It was the dragons who were building the empires, who were controlling men, and therefore building these huge empires. And of course, to the detriment of mankind.
That is so amazing, too. And of course, this leads on to as well, one of your other books, Pegasus, A Journey to New Eden, going from pirates and mermaids and going on a journey. So it's like you're out in outer space on a shuttle for USI Colony 5, Pegasus workstation. Technology's taken a giant leap forward, the space spider and more. You can just tell us a little bit about that book.
The Pegasus was really my first sci-fi novel, and I wrote it because my wife at the time asked me, what did I think about the SALT treaties, the treaty between America and Russia. And I was like, well, it's good to have the treaties and everything, but I'm not really worried about nuclear war breaking out between the superpowers, for the main reason because we don't have a place to go, and it's an unwinnable war. So you're not really going to have a superpower nuclear war. But what you will have is some rogue state who's ready to bring on Armageddon. And at that point, you might have some sort of nuclear chain that would expand and run out of control. I said, but even that probably won't happen until we find someplace else to go. We only have one Earth. And so my idea was that they build Pegasus, which is the first light ship, because in space, of course, you can't go anywhere unless you can go at light speed. No one's going anywhere. And now we're finding there are these other planets around stars and things like that, but the closest star is the Alpha Centauri system, and that's 4 years away at light speed. So unless you're hitting light speed, you're not going to another planet. Even to go to Mars or something like that, it takes what, almost a year and a half, something
It,
like that.
it does, yeah. And they talked in the news that I guess you pay so much for a round trip to Mars, and it almost takes like a year to get there, and what, stay 2, 3, 4 weeks, and it takes another year to get back. So you sometimes wonder, did they miscalculate, or are they trying to just trump up some market opportunity?
Yeah. So when you talk about space colonization, you're going to first off, you're going to probably colonize the space around the planet. And how are you going to start colonization? You're probably going to build things like prisons. You know, when you start talking about terrorists and all these people, and what will be the easiest way to rid the planet of some of these people, you start building prisons. And let look at what happened with colonization around the world. How did
Mm-hmm.
they start colonizing the new world? They sent prisoners. You know, they sent prisoners to South America, to Australia. You know, the pilgrims were pretty much kicked out of Europe. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and
Or just to get away from the king too for being a mega tyrant.
yeah. So and so when you look at it that way, what's going to be the driving force behind colonization in the future? Is it going to be some sort of prison system? Is it going to be some sort of uh, indentured servants? Because that's also part of what happens. And so in Pegasus, you get that. You get the idea that you're going to build these space colonies around Earth, and then they become autonomous in the fact that whoever builds the colonies controls the people's lives that live there.
Or
And
or
you
get
got
some or
yeah,
get some people that come and they're exiled from their own countries as well too. That's part of colonization. They get exiled from their home country.
yep. And so it's really a dystopian view of the future. And so they build this ship, the Pegasus, which is the first light ship. And what they do is, because it's going to be a one-way trip. If you go anywhere in space, you're probably going on a one-way trip. Even if you could travel at light speed, you're not going to travel 4 years to some place and go back for supplies another 4 years and come back. That's 8 years in between the time you land on that planet and go back again and come back. That's an 8 year thing. You cannot afford to run out of material, supply, food, whatever. So you better bring everything you need with you. And that's what the Pegasus does. It cuts up the world, and inside the Pegasus, they bring entire habitats
Mm-hmm.
with them. So it's like a Noah's Ark.
Uh, I was just going to get the Noah's Ark as well too, where it's going to rain 40 days, 40 nights, and wipe out a good portion of the earth. They bring 2 by 2 and everything else, and watching an adaptation of it, it's like by the time of 31st day, I'm getting tired of fish, getting tired of bread. This air is stale. It's like, when are we going to land? We need windows, and then they end up prevailing.
Right. So that's what Pegasus was. It was a Noah's Ark of sorts, because the world was in such bad shape. People were escaping with the idea that they're going to go to this new planet and start up a whole new civilization. And of course, the idea behind Pegasus is you really can't escape yourself.
That is a very, very good point. I really do like that. Greatly appreciate it. We're here with James Hill from RockHill Publishing, talking about his new books, and let's get to some other things, some of your future projects we talked about, and what does it exactly take to write in different genres, and what's it like to be an independent publisher?
Well, to be an independent publisher, you have to, first off, you want to do it in the right way. You want your authors to reap the benefits of writing, because as a writer, I see, and this is why it took me so long to actually get published, because it's very hard to get through to the big five publishing companies. And then it's very hard to get any kind of new material through, because they're all looking at the dollar sign, and we're going to publish what is selling now. So if vampire books are selling, everybody wants to sell vampire books. If you wrote anything else, you're not getting published. If something else is going, and it's fair, because they're putting out a lot of money to put these books out, and so they want to sell what's popular. So as an independent, though, I don't have to necessarily go with what's popular. I can publish what's good. If you write a good book and you tell a good story, then it will sooner or later resonate with people, and I can do that. And I also do it on the same type of thing as the regular publishing company, but I return more of the royalties back to the authors.
And then what are some of the upcoming works that you have coming up from your company?
Okay. We have The Noggin, which is a fantasy about the girl who winds up on a different planet. She teleports to this planet, and the planet is somewhat in the Middle Ages as far as technology goes. So she comes from Earth and she teleports to this planet, unbeknownst to her, because she doesn't know anything about how she got there. And the king, the tyrannical king, is chasing down this idea that they're going to be a prodigy, a child that's going to dethrone him. And he's been in power for like 200 years. Wow. And now, because of his powers, he gets long life. And so she winds up on the planet, and they are after her to kill her because they think she either is the child of prodigy or she's going to lead them to the child of prodigy.
Mm.
And
that is
prophecy, not prodigy. Sorry about that. Prophecy.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That is amazing too. And what are some of the other genres you're looking to take on as well?
Well, we have a historical one coming up, which is called the Valella's Chronicle, the Crescent and the Cross, which is about the fall of Constantinople. It's a historical novel. Now, the writer for that one, Zach, his family, he can trace his family lineage back to the fall of Constantinople. So part of his family history is if you know anything about Greeks, they love their history.
I could tell too. They're very proud of it as well too. And where can we all find your books?
My books are online in Amazon and Barnes and Noble and any place else that fine books are sold. And you can also go to RockHill Publishing, all one word, .com. And you can go to the RockHill Publishing store and buy the books there. We have them in ebook format, paperback, and hardcover. For me, myself, I like a physical book. I work too many hours on computers, programming and stuff like that. So I'm really a paper and ink type person. So I publish in both paperback and hardcover, but I also publish for people who like to download. And, let's face it, you can have a little phone and have thousands of books there, whereas if you have paperback, you have to have, like me, shelves and shelves of books.
Right, exactly, and that's the way to go as well too. And are you currently seeking new authors accepting works, or
Yes.
can
Yes.
and how they do that?
Well, they can go to my website, rockhillpublishing.com, and we have a submission page, and they'll tell you. And on the submission page, it tells you how to submit. But you will submit the first 2 chapters, one in the middle, and the end. So we see how your writing style is, what type of story you tell. We need a synopsis. We need a character outlines for the book, so we know what the characters are in the book. And you submit those 3 things. And what we do when we read them and evaluate them, I have an editor. My editor-in-chief is Athena Paris. She's also a romance novelist. So I published 4 of her books. Her latest one is All I Ever Wanted, which is a 2-parter. So it's All I Ever Wanted, Jesse. And the second part will come out probably next year or so. We get really tied up with the publishing part of it. So it's hard sometimes to get our own work out when we're busy working, publishing other people's stuff. But
I understand. It sounds like you got a great repertoire of what's out there. And just lastly, before we wrap up, we know you're very busy, and of course, I guess the Thunder Gods are just rumbling over Virginia Beach. What's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
The best advice I can give to anybody?
Yes.
Oh, okay. As a writer, do not stop writing. A lot of people who write their first book they're going to sit there and wait for that book to sell before they write their second book. And that's not the thing to do. After you write your first book, start shopping it around, start looking for publishers, start doing all that kind of stuff, and also start working on your second book. And then after you write your second book, start working on your third book. Do not stop writing, waiting for the gold to roll in, because sometimes it takes years for the gold to come. And in the meantime, you wasted a lot of time. So, and sometimes, you know, the first book may not be the best book you wrote. It may take you 2 or 3 shots before you really hone your craft, because let's face it, with practice comes perfect. And you build, and therefore you get a better sense of writing the more you write.
That is amazing. It's amazing advice. And I just wanted to say, James, it's a great honor to have you on the program. Thank you very much for your time. And looking forward to having you on again soon. And do us a favor, please keep us up to date with some of your latest works.
I will. Thanks, Mike. I'm glad to be here. You're a great host, and it was a pleasure. And I will let you know when things come out. Like I said, we got a couple of things we're trying to get out before the end of the summer. And I'll send you a line. I'll drop you a line, let you know what's coming out. I think you have one of my authors coming up on your show in a little while. He wrote Mrs. of the Rock, Myron Edwards.
Oh yes, okay. I think I know who you're talking about. That is coming up, and I'm glad you're making a nice plug. That's who's coming up next, and I guess there's more too on the way. So we're looking forward to having Myron on, and like to have you on again soon, and just keep us up to date. We love what you got.
Thanks, Mike. And